Alright, welcome back. In this module, we're going to learn about the waste of motion. Specifically, by the end of this module, you'll know exactly what motion is, what it costs us, some tools to battle it with, and finally, you'll learn a 5-step process you can begin to use today in order to reduce the amount of motion in your workplace. But let's start off by learning what motion is. Well, formally defined, any movement of people that doesn't add value to the product creates the waste of motion. Now, there are many examples of motion, such as reaching for tools or supplies, or searching for items that aren't where they're supposed to be, or straining to reach or lift items off the ground. Or, as we see here with Isaac, he's having to waste several extra steps in order to reach his air nozzle. And he's also taking some extra steps and reaching to his right as he places his inspected parts down on the bench. Now, all these extra movements, while not overly excessive, will definitely add up over time, making Isaac far less productive than he could be. So that's what motion is. Now, let's briefly discuss a few of the causes. First and foremost, poorly designed processes often lead to motion as they're not designed with the operator in mind. Second, lack of standard work methods often leads to motion since the work is never done in a consistent way. Third, poor work area layout and design is a huge cause for motion. Things as simple as the place of a community printer can have a huge impact on how much motion, in this case walking, employees are forced to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And last, but certainly not least, disorganization and clutter are strong enablers of all kinds of waste, including motion. Now then, as we learned in the 7W overview module, overproduction is indeed the mother of all waste, but I think it's safe to say that motion just might be the mother of all productivity waste. So let's explore why this is as we talk about the cost of motion to our organizations. As it turns out, in a disorganized workplace, the average person can spend approximately 30 seconds every 5 minutes searching for something. So this is 30 seconds out of the total of 300 seconds, meaning 10% of the total time. In other words, over a 450-minute shift, this means we can waste as much as 45 minutes searching for things. In other words, the waste of motion is a huge productivity killer. Now, other studies have shown that as much as 30 to 80% of all manual work is nothing but motion, which is why when we conduct SMED or setup reduction Kaizen events, attacking motion is a top priority. And because of all this motion, many companies are plagued with long changeovers, which means they often have to produce large batches of inventory once they get a machine set up. So, as I'm sure you're starting to see, each of the 7 deadly wastes feed off of one another in a major way. Alright, well, now that we have a better understanding of the causes and costs of motion, let's turn our attention to the tools we can use to eliminate it. Well, the first tool that we can use, and something that we've covered in great detail in a previous course, is 5S, which, as a reminder, stands for sorting or getting rid of the things we no longer need, straightening up the items left, while then deep cleaning the area. We then work on implementing a system to standardize the previous 3 steps, which in turn will enable us to have the self-discipline to sustain the results we've achieved. Again, if you need a refresher on 5S, please review the existing 5S Workplace Productivity course. Now, another powerful tool that we can use to battle motion is a time observation chart, which allows us to document the detailed steps to a particular process. And by doing this, we're able to see where we have wasted motion, which in turn allows us to eliminate it. Now, we'll be covering how to use time observation charts like this in a future course. In the meantime, if you have any questions or would like some coaching on how to use it, please email us or post a question in a forum and we'll be happy to help you out. Now, another powerful motion fighting tool is a workflow analysis, also called a spaghetti diagram. Well, a spaghetti diagram is simply a sketch, often hand-drawn, of the walking and motion involved in a particular process. In this example, a person had to walk 229 meters for this particular process. Now, these are just a few of the tools that you can use, but if all you did was relentlessly focused on 5S and spaghetti diagrams, you'd be in an excellent position to make amazing improvements. Okay, to wrap up this module, I want to sort of tie all these tools and concepts together into a simple but powerful 5-step recipe to reduce motion. Well, the first step to this recipe is to get rid of the things you no longer need. Then you should focus on bringing the items, which could be tools or supplies you need on a regular basis, close to you. We call this bringing things to the point of use. The third step is to make sure you use both hands while utilizing fixtures whenever possible. Fourth, you should focus on simplifying the way the work is done. In other words, work to reduce the number of steps or movements made. And finally, we must pay special notice to safety and ergonomics. All right, well, let's get back to Isaac and see what improvements he and his friends have come up with. Now, as you can now see, with a few small changes, namely moving the air gun closer to him and placing the finished parts closer to him, a tremendous amount of motion has been removed from the process. Now, I feel very confident in saying that while this was a simple example, I imagine you'll find many areas in your organization that will greatly benefit from simple improvements just like this one. All right, well, this wraps up this module on motion. In our next lesson, we're going to talk about a waste that is often confused with motion: transportation. So, we'll speak to you soon.